All right, Bash, let's hear some questions here from the audience. I know we've had some sent into us for a while. So what we got tonight?
Are there any populations or personalities that are more susceptible to the yips? This is from a question on Instagram we got earlier in the week. Thought it was good, so I threw it in there.
Yeah, I love that question. There was a study that was done from Ainsley Smith at the Mayo Clinic many years ago, and they brought up this idea about focal dystonia, this sudden involuntary movement of the hands, as if people had a neurological condition. And I'm not going to say the study was a landmark study. It got a lot of attention. And I had people come to see me all the time saying, oh my God, I got a neurological condition called the yips. And I was like, can we ever look at it as that maybe the yips are a neurological presence, but maybe not a condition? I think people who are high performers, high perfectionists, high anxiety traits tend to have a higher chance of the yips. It's kind of like panic attacks. People who tend to be running a little hotter, talking about doing some things like that, have a little bit more stress, worried about mechanics, more apt to jump in on the mechanical side, are probably at increased risk. But just like panic attacks, it can happen to anybody. The thing that we have to be aware of is what gives us a higher rate of it is that fear of embarrassment or that out of control coming out of the blue thing. Okay, that out of the blue that pops in, that we feel that we don't have a plan to navigate it. That's the thing that pushes through. So I think it's more of a psychological side that you don't have a process. Okay, we got to develop a process when it happens. Get in after it. Okay, next question.
This one is from Sam on YouTube. Sam says, I'm a redshirt freshman pitcher. I got hurt last year and I'm coming back from injury. I've been dealing with the yips only when a batter is in the box. So kind of a statement / question there for you.
Okay. Well, as a former redshirt freshman and then as somebody who got injured, I get it, right? I lost my throwing mechanics after I had a shoulder injury. And the problem was every time I went in the bullpen, somebody would say, hey, have you thought about doing this? Hey, it looks like you're doing this. And all those other things that pop in there, okay? And now every time I pitched, people would give me feedback on that. Let's boil it down. When somebody steps in the box, what changes? The freedom reduces, the outcome becomes more, consequences become higher, and so you tend to try to over control. Let me ask you a question, and can't answer this here, but I want you to think about it. What is your trigger? What is the key that unlocks you mechanically? Okay? We know that stress is going to be higher when a hitter steps in the box. We know that people are going to be there. We know that that's going to cause you to squeeze in on that strike zone a little bit. Okay? One of the things that we did at LSU, and I'll just use this as an example from pitching, is we pitched to the right knee of the catcher. Bash, did you guys do that at Ole Miss? The reach across?
Yeah, we called it something different, but same concept, yeah.
What did y'all call it?
You got to exchange your shoulders.
Yes. Okay. Now, why is that brilliant? Okay. It wasn't like you're doing something wrong mechanically. It was an intentional process that it forced you to do something that tended to eliminate the mistake. Okay. It's not about like, hey, throw it hard and let it rip. Okay. I never understood that one. I've also never understood. Just go out there and have fun. Shit, this is hard. This ain't fun. This is hard. Okay. So when you see a hitter, one of the things to look at is find me a target point. And one of the things I used to do, and I found when I came back, is I would focus on the left elbow of the opposing hitter if they're a righty. And if they're a lefty, I focused on the left shoulder of my catcher. And I focused on that, and I threw through that spot. That is something that I found that helped. Find the right shoulder, find the left elbow, something that gives you an anchor to drive through. I'd be interested to see what Alan would have to say on that. What's next?
This is one from Dan. I think this is like a little comment before, but then we'll get to the question. He said, I didn't have my first panic attack until I was 43. Thought I knew what it was like until it actually happened.
Yeah, I had a professor in grad school said, don't ever judge a panic attack until you've been in the throes of one. They suck. They're
100%. But Dan said, is there a point when the yips become more that it goes beyond a hiccup and becomes more of a larger issue?
Well, when it becomes your identity, when it becomes the player's identity. And if you watch somebody with the yips, how many people come rallying to them? I've seen it with field goal kickers. I've seen it with free throw shooters, everything. Okay. And it becomes the identity because everybody wants to talk about it. The best way to say it is, I've got a plan, I'm working it, and I'm stacking reps. And eventually, you're going to be in clear skies. But Bob is always hiding there. So don't be afraid of Bob. Instead, realize that Bob is only there when you're close to the outcome that you want.
This one is from Teresa on YouTube. My daughter is a competitive junior golfer. What suggestions do you have for her to keep her focused on her own game when in a string of tournaments where she wasn't playing her best?
Okay, so it's not much different than the yips when somebody tends to get distracted. Because here's the deal. You can't control thought at all. Your mind will wander. We'll get caught up on different distractions. There are different things that are there. But what we have to do is we have to look at it, accept it, and pivot. Change the station. Just like if there's a song, like look, if there's a Nickelback song that comes on the radio, I'm going to turn the channel. I don't yell at it and go, I cannot believe it's there. Okay, I'm just going to turn the station. Okay, so what you do is you do the same thing. They're paying attention, whatever. Now I'm going to focus back. We can have an amazing conversation in a coffee shop. And we'll have time where our attention breaks, and then we'll come back to it. Teach her how to funnel in and funnel out. My first episode was on the funnel of focus, so make sure you check that out in my archives.
This one was from Double J on YouTube. Can you share your step-by-step process for someone with the yips and chipping on the routine, and when Bob shows up, how you build that process in?
Okay, Double J. So first thing I would tell you, more than anything else, go get you an Orange Whip wedge trainer. I don't make any money on it. I don't do anything with it. It was brilliant. And then what I want you to do is I want you to take about 50 balls, and I want you to put a spot on the green, and I want you to try to figure out how to get that club to deliver that ball to that target. And I want you to tell me later and send me a message that you figured it out. For me, I choked down, I neutralized my grip, I played it off my back foot, I put a little space between the ball and the club, and I'll chip with anybody. Seriously, I'll chip with anybody, okay? And I found my way. See, that's the thing about Bob. Bob wants to poke holes in everything that you do, and you ignore what you're capable of doing. I wanted to come up with a plan that I knew I could trust. So for me, when I get in that situation, Bob shows up. It's not mechanics. It's setup for me. I get set up. I like what it is. I take a deep breath. I look at my target, and I'm like, I give myself some positive intention and self-talk. I'm pretty good at this. Watch this. A couple of months after I got over the yips, one of my dear friends, Mark Blackburn, top instructor on the PGA Tours, teaches like everybody who's winning right now. Guy's making a fortune. But we were playing in a money match, and he and I like to talk a lot of garbage at each other. And he's got that British humor. I mean, just remember, he had highlights and a pierced ears, so he can't talk that much garbage. And so one of the things that you know, I hit this shot, and I'm short of the green. I'm in an uphill lie in tight Bermuda. And he walks up and goes, this will be good. I'll win this hole. And I can feel Bob show up. And all of a sudden, I'm like, whew. Okay. And I took a step back, and I said, you're good at this stuff. Go through your process and execute. What's the worst that can happen? You hit a bad chip, but do it with intention instead of prevention. Took a deep breath, stepped in, and I stiffed it to about an inch. And that was such a win for me, because instead of trying to rush, I almost hit before he got up there so I could get out of the way. And I said, no way, I'm going to sit in. Double J, that's the process. You're going to be on the lookout. We're going to do a video on this real soon.
This next one's from Alan. Alan's a coach. I have a varsity catcher that cannot throw the ball back to the pitcher. Is your first step or go-to to have him throw the cutter slider back to the pitcher? Or do you have any other suggestions on that?
Okay, I don't want to blow out elbows, but yes, it's usually the first thing I do, because what do we do with a catcher? And Bash, when you threw back to first base, what did you do? When nobody was on base, did you even like move your legs? Or did you just kind of like, they were square to the pitcher, they weren't turned, you've done it 100 times, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, if I said, hey, every time you throw back, I want you to turn, step, show your backside, turn, you'd sail that ball to center field. Okay? So what I would do with them is I get them in the outfield and I have them throw. And I'm like, we're going to throw with both legs planted in the ground. We're just going to throw it back and forth. We're going to do it from 30 feet. We're going to move back to 40 feet, to 60 feet, to 80 feet. Then the next thing I do is when we get them behind the plate, as I said, I don't care if you throw it through. I just want you to tell me you threw it with intention. Okay? Now, here's another trick. Throw to the biggest part of the body. Okay? Tell the pitchers, no facial expressions back. Don't huff and puff. I mean, pitchers can be prima donnas. So don't, whatever. Okay. Is that fair? Is that fair? Okay.
100%.
You hated that, didn't you?
Divas.
Yeah. Divas. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell him, hey, look, we're trying to support our guy right now. Okay. He's the best guy behind the plate. Don't push him out to the outfield. Okay. So the other thing I tell them is to look through their chest. Don't look at their chest. Look through their Adam's apple into the outfield and let them get in the way of a good throw. That would help. And if not, just have them cut it. It'll work. Let's do 2 more.
All right. Let's go with, let's see. Tom says, is casting the club on the downswing a form of the yips, or is it anxiety?
Okay, I'm going to defer on this one. There's some golf instructors on here that'll probably have a better answer. But and TPI's got a lot of information about casting, early releasing, and all that. But here's the deal: if you cast and you're trying to prevent it in your swing, one of the things I'd have you do is take a couple practice swings, get a feel of it, then step in. But just know that you may cast, and it's okay. You don't have to be perfect. It's not about doing the swing. Instead, it's kind of going through it, that process. It's not about prevention of casting. It's about having something that you know you can execute in your swing that allows it to get better.
This one from Bonin, I believe is this individual's name. What would be the best way to get over the mental barrier of bad tee shots, i.e. stepping up to a shot where you don't feel comfortable? He's a college golfer.
Okay. Great question. We're going to end on this one. What happens is a player comes up on the tee box, and for some reason, sometimes designers create mental hurdles that you don't really realize. Like the box is shifted a little bit, or it's pointing you right into some danger. And you have to look for those cues if you feel uncomfortable. If it's one of those that you love, who cares, right? Just get up, pick a target, and let it rip. There's other times where all of a sudden the stress and the trauma that you've got is built up through that. So one of the things that I do is I go ahead and acknowledge that I don't like this tee shot. Don't like it. And unless there's an alternative that you do love, like, hey, I can hit 3-wood. I love this shot. That's fine. If it's like you want to hit a driver and you're afraid of the what if, okay, here's the deal. You have to ask yourself, if you have to re-tee, do you want to re-tee out of regret or frustration? Disappointment. I'd rather do it out of disappointment. So I'm going to go through my target and say, you know what? What's the worst that happens? I have to re-tee. I don't want that to happen, but I'd rather hit a great drive at that target and cut it off of that tree back there. Take a deep breath. Let some of the tension out. Don't try to swing it smooth. Don't get caught up in mechanicals other than the key that you use all the time. And step up to it and go for it. If you're going to jump off a diving board, don't jump and try to turn and catch the board. Jump, or you're going to get yourself hurt. So do the same thing on a tee box. Step in, take a deep breath, and see your line and say, you know what? Let's go for it. Challenge yourself. Don't look at it as a risk reward, like all or nothing, bad or ugly. Challenge yourself to be in that situation and go for it.